I started building this game and started this channel 1 year ago, pretty much to the day. I wanted to make a management game and factory builder set in a forest. For those who've seen my devlog series, you'll know this started with inspiration from the old school games in that genre, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, SimCity, and the modern yet retro Factorio. I feel like now is a great time to see how Lumbermill has progressed since I wrote that first line of code. Despite the title of this video, the idea actually started a few years ago. I made a bunch of false starts with this project, each time abandoning it for the same reason. I didn't entirely know how to make it, and that was enough of a reason to stop at the time. I eventually came back around to the idea in January 2019, determined to finish it this time or give up on it entirely. I bought a license for Sprite and drew this little image. I felt like the basic style combined everything I liked from my past attempts, and was simple enough to give the whole idea another shot. I started with the black notebook you've probably seen in my devlogs. I wrote down the general concept, chose some major features, and within a week I had this basic version working. A forest of maple and pine trees randomly generated, and I got rivers working by winding them around invisible obstacles on the map. You could hire employees, though they were just purple diamonds at this point and didn't do all that much. Those first few weeks really helped define the appearance of the game, and although pretty much all of this art has been improved or replaced, you can definitely see the style is there. With the foundations laid, I quickly moved on to getting some factory elements working. By the second devlog, I had the original red conveyor belts snapping to each other after wrestling with the code, and logs teleporting their way along the path. My aim with this was always to give the player tools to put together a lumber mill, handling logs from cutting down trees to producing and selling furniture. Fast forward a few weeks and I'd redesigned the conveyor belts to their current look, raising them onto stilts. This was pretty clearly inspired by Roller Coaster Tycoon and really helped set the tone for the whole appearance of machines in the game. I added rails to the game and the trading house in a single week, before adding a bulldoze tool and fences to outline the area of land owned by the player. The game was starting to take shape, and I was getting to a point where it wasn't purely a forest generator. That laid the foundation for buying and selling land, and I learned quite a bit during this time about overlaying UI onto the world in Unity. This added an element of exploration to the game. However, I'm now questioning this feature and it might change a bit in the finished product. The open forest just looks better to me. I went on from there to add a couple of machines, the splitter, combiner, and amberizer. That took a lot of figuring out, as the internal logic is a lot more complicated for these machines than it may seem at first. That really helped me to get my head around how machines would work later on though, so I'm glad I put the time in. I added an alert system to help with sending notifications to the player before making it possible to research new machines. For those expecting this feature in the game, I actually ended up scrapping the whole thing a few months later. While it was cool on paper, it just wasn't fun and felt like a lot of waiting around. The time spent wasn't wasted though. The Unity UI system isn't every developer's favourite, so this whole exercise really helped me to get a grip on that and improve the interfaces throughout the game. Next came another redesign. The old pine trees hadn't aged well by that point, and I knew I could do better. I drew a bunch of growth stages for this new pine tree, and created an algorithm for making trees in the centre of clumps older and taller than those on the edges. If you want to know what I did, the link to that video is in the corner of this video. Things were starting to look a bit better, and I was feeling ready to generate some employees with a bit more individuality. I animated a walk cycle and created modular employees that can be made from different hairstyles and skin tones. They looked so much better than the weird old lumberjack that I'd drawn early on. Mechanics came after that, which can repair machines, and I totally redesigned the two main interfaces of the game, Build and Lumbermill. The player will spend a fair amount of time looking at these, so I felt it was important to create something that looked good. I added tabs to each so I can expand them if I need to. My favourite part of this redesign is the employee hire section. Employee headshots are generated and become black and white when you hire an employee. It was becoming quite clear at this point that the trees were painfully short, and the new employees were practically the same size as the tallest trees. That didn't look right at all, as I wanted to create the feeling of a tall forest, so back to drawing it was, and I raised the trees up. It's been a gradual improvement in the trees since the first week, but I think this is the final design for the pine trees at least, if not very close. The game got a main menu and a save system at this point. I also added policies which allow the player to choose how things are done in their business, like what age trees need to be for a lumberjack to cut them down. I then added the ability to plant trees. The player can unlock new tree species and plant them to create a sustainable forest. I really like the grow animation for pine trees here, and will definitely be doing something similar for other types of tree. At last, I got onto a major gameplay addition, crafting. The crafting system saw the addition of two new machines, the most complex yet, the CNC and the assembler. The CNC cuts parts out and the assembler puts those parts together. This required a lot of rewriting of old code to make it all compatible. Things were further complicated by the fact different species look different, and combining these species could result in some strange furniture combinations. I figured it out though, and after a few weeks, the assembler was churning out hybrid pine and maple chairs. I also added edges to the map to make things look a little more grounded. I hit 1,000 subscribers at that point, which was a huge milestone to hit for me, and something I hoped for a lot longer down the line. Thank you to everyone who's watched and enjoyed my videos up until now. Feeling confident, I removed the research system at that point. As I said, it wasn't fun. I replaced it with a money-based unlocking system, where you click and hold on an item in the build menu to unlock it for a set price. This is immediate feedback and gives the player the same satisfaction of having earned something while allowing them to actually choose what they unlock. Another major gameplay feature came after that, trade offers. The output of the assembler and CNC machines can be ordered and sold to companies when you cart it to them by rail. This is still a work in progress, but will be the primary way you earn money in the game. One of the most recent additions, letters, came next, and these will come in from companies when they make offers. Finally arriving at 1 year since the start of the project, it now has a full-blown loans system to borrow and pay back money when you need it. That's it so far, 365 days of game development, and Lumbermill is really starting to come together as a game. It's gone from a pixel art sketch to a forest generator, and now it's starting to look like a real management game at last. It's still got a way to go, based on the game's Trello, but it's definitely come a long way since those first failed attempts. At the moment, the gameplay looks a little like this. You're given a blank patch of forest and a little startup capital with which you must construct your first buildings. You can hire lumberjacks to chop trees and mechanics to fix up machines. Just remember to build them a home first. From there, you expand your business. A loan taken here and a machine unlocked there, before getting all the way to the trading house and receiving your first trade offers. You build bridges across the river, and although the forest is looking a little different to when you started, you're now farming trees and shipping out furniture. There's a lot more to add from there, and I'm sure that'll change by the time the game releases, but I'm pleased with how things are going. You can wishlist the game on Steam at the link in the description. Thanks for this video, of course, go to my patrons, Nick in particular. Patreon rewards include copies of the game when it comes out, and designing and adopting a lumberjack, so check that out if you're interested. Thank you very much for watching. The next video will probably be a Lumbermill devlog, so hit subscribe if you want to see that.